I want to take a moment, though, to go through some of the stories in the world of justice, or the lack thereof, as it may be. As you know, there's been an arrest made of Steve Bannon. We'll get to that in a second here. I just think that this is a reminder to everybody that while our side, meaning Republicans, conservatives, often get lectures from those who are allegedly on our side about fair play, the left goes out there and settles scores. They go out. That doesn't matter if it takes them years, doesn't matter what abuse of power they have to engage in. They will go after people who upset them years after they're no longer even in power. We'll address the Bannon issue here coming up. But first off, something that we don't hear much about, and I've tweeted about this a few times, Clay. It's always interesting to see the responses from people, which are usually, oh, yeah, that's right. That whole thing. The leak of the Dobbs Supreme Court opinion, which created a real, first of all, a huge break in Supreme Court protocol. It's one of the only institutions of government that has been able to, for a long time, count on some degree of internal secrecy and at least secrecy until the opinions are made public. We still don't know who leaked the Dobbs report. This is interesting because there aren't that many suspects in this one. Justice Neil Gorsuch recently said he hopes the Supreme Court committee report on this will be coming out soon. And I mean, I just want to, I want to go, you like to make predictions. I don't think they're going to name the leaker. I think they're going to say that there were a number of people that had access to. I don't believe they're going to come out and even give us one person as the leaker. If they were to do so, though, so this is my sub prediction underneath this, we will find that it is a leftist clerk who works for Sotomayor. That is my prediction. And beyond that, if one person is named for this, and by the way, anyone who works for Sotomayor is a leftist, so that's not. I mean, this is repetition. The person who leaked the Supreme Court opinion, if that person is either outed by the report or comes forward, which is also a possibility, that individual will end up with book deals, with praise, with nothing but celebration for the left, because it didn't obviously change the outcome here, but showing a willingness to break norms when Democrats really want something, that is to be encouraged as far as the leftists are concerned. They're going to give somebody a high five for that. They don't care about the institutions of government.
Yeah, whoever leaked it will become a multimillionaire. They will get a book deal. They will get a television relationship with MSNBC, maybe not CNN since they seem to be going somewhat sane of late, and they will be universally hailed as a hero. And I'm glad you brought this up because, by and large, the media has completely abandoned this story. But remember, the leaking of this opinion directly led to an assassination attempt on Brett Kavanaugh, which also is a completely buried story. Remember, what was going on here? They were trying to get this court case changed, the result in Dobbs, and they put a target on every conservative justice in the majority for weeks, if not months, before this opinion was officially released, to the point where a man traveled all the way across the country and showed up outside of Brett Kavanaugh's home and tried to assassinate him to change the outcome of Dobbs, something that we have never seen occur before. And I just think we need to hammer this home. Can you imagine what the media would have done if this had been a Donald Trump supporter who had traveled to Sotomayor's home, to Justice Kagan's home, and had been trying to assassinate them to change the outcome of a case? It would be directly connected to January 6th. It would be a demand for more investigations of right-wing extremism. Instead, both the leak itself, which is truly unprecedented in the annals of Supreme Court history, as well as the fact that it provoked an assassination attempt on a justice to try and change the outcome of a pending case, which has never happened in the history of our nation so far as I can remember, where I'm talking about one particular case motivating someone to try to kill a justice, and it's like it never happened. So it's amazing.
On the one hand, we all know that this is going to be going in this general direction of no consequences. Doesn't really the left isn't upset by it. They were really cheering it on in the early days. The Democrats were thinking this might be an opportunity to create the public pressure, and the media went along with it too. They were actively trying to, New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, they were trying to reward the effort behind the leak to increase pressure on justices, and even we all recall supporting for at least a while the protests at the homes of justices, which were explicitly illegal. This is a violation of, and anyone who goes, well, what about our First Amendment rights or whatever, people that are idiots and have never actually read nor understood the First Amendment, also known as left-wing activists, they don't seem to understand if there's a prosecutor, let's say, in your hometown, and you don't like that he's prosecuting somebody, and you camp outside that prosecutor's home, that is intimidation of the judiciary, or in this case, intimidation of the prosecutorial branch. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to threaten people doing their jobs and because you don't like the outcome of what it may be in the criminal justice system. So that's on the one hand. And then you see what they do here with Steve Bannon. Notice all of the efforts to criminally prosecute everybody from the top down of Trump world. I mean, it's hard to honestly keep track of how many different investigations, Trump's taxes, Trump organization, Russia collusion, obstruction. They're throwing all these things. They never actually have enough for a prosecution. There should have been far more attention paid to the fact that there was recently, and I think it came from a FOIA request, Bill Barr, when he was Attorney General, there was an internal DOJ opinion where it lays out there was absolutely no basis to bring a criminal charge against Donald Trump based on Russia collusion obstruction.
Yes.
That was a fantasy of remember the 10 possible counts of obstruction. Total garbage, okay? That was the actual opinion from within I believe the Office of Legal Counsel, OLC, within the DOJ, which is where they make those sorts of high-level decisions and distinctions of law. And then you get Steve Bannon out there who, well, the thing about Bannon is he's a fighter and he's theatrical. And he says, well, play clip 1. You can hear it from him.
This is what happens in the last days of a dying regime. They will never shut me up, not to kill me first. I have not yet begun to fight.
There you get Bannon, Clay, saying, they will not shut me up. I have not yet begun to fight, and this is what you see in the last days of a dying regime. They will have to kill me to make me stop speaking out on this stuff. You know, they under any normal circumstance, you would think that an individual like Steve Bannon, after the president pardoned him on a previous federal prosecution, to now use effectively an end run on double jeopardy. I know about the separation of powers, federal and state, but it's a technicality to go after somebody at the state level on a charge like this. They're sending a message. This is what this is. They're trying to tell their base, we never forgive or forget the crimes against humanity of the Trump administration. And also, you better not stand with Trump going forward. Or maybe, I don't know, those 85,000 IRS agents are going to have a nice long look at your taxes.
Buck, good history question for you here. Steve Bannon, I have not yet begun to fight, is a famous quote by whom in American history?
John Paul Jones?
Yes.
Bam!
That is a super
Buckster and Fuego today.
That is a super nerd recollection. I'm very impressed. The history nerd bona fides on knowing John Paul Jones. I wanted to look it up to make sure that I got it right. I've not yet begun to fight the immortal retort.
He just put me on the spot with a few million listeners, by the way.
I didn't
but the Buckster always delivers.
John Paul Jones was requested to surrender as they were fighting with the British frigate off the northern coast of England during the American Revolution. The response to his demand that he surrender, I have not yet begun to fight, 1779. So Steve Bannon, also a history nerd, and look, all of this is a huge Remember when Hillary said there was a vast right-wing conspiracy arrayed against her? I think she went on the Today Show, early in during the Clinton term. There is a massive left-wing conspiracy to take down anyone that is connected to Donald Trump at all in an effort. This is what they know, in an effort to keep Trump off of the ballot in 2024 because they know that he is likely to win. And they are terrified. Now, I think there are multiple Republicans who could win in 2024. So I understand a lot of people are deeply committed to Donald Trump, but I think the Republican bench is very strong. But this is a sign of weakness and terror on their part that is trying to manifest itself as strength. That is where I think people need to understand what's going on here. They are trying to bring to bear all of these powerful elements of the government, not because, Buck, they are in a position of strength, but because in reality they are incredibly weak.
Well, I think that the big question is we're talking about abuse of the system, the process, the judiciary for partisan ends, which Democrats do as a matter of course. They engage in lawfare against their political opponents. The use of the law as a tool of political warfare is a central Democrat tactic and has been for a long time. I like to remind everybody, see Senator Ted Stevens, see the Scott Walker, John Doe investigations in Wisconsin, Chris Christie, Bridgegate, Governor Perry in Texas when they were going to bring a charge against him for some kind of obstruction because he was going to fire somebody. Endless. And then, of course, Trump with Russia collusion. They do this all the time. I think what they're holding back in reserve now, people ask me, are they going to prosecute Trump over this Mar-a-Lago nonsense? I get asked this every day by people, either friends of mine, and I keep going back and forth with whether or not I think it's likely. I don't think anybody knows. I think, Clay, the Democrats are going back and forth, meaning the people in charge of this, Merrick Garland and everyone else around him, these deep state libs who would make such a decision. I think they're going back and forth, too, because it's a clearly political play. I think they're holding it back in reserve to see how do we think, meaning how do they think it would play if it's clear Trump is going to be the nominee and if it's clear old man Biden is going to actually run for a second time, which I believe it is, that is going to happen. You and I think, see eye to eye on that one. Right now, it is likely they're going to have Biden going for a second term, as reckless as that is. Do they bring a charge against him of obstruction, no matter how flimsy? We mentioned the DOJ memo. They were like, guys, there's no basis for this, okay? We all know this. And internally in DOJ, this wasn't meant for public consumption. It wasn't a PR letter. They're like, yeah, no, you can't bring it. This is trash on the Russia collusion obstruction of the Mueller probe. Do you think that maybe they're holding it back as bringing a criminal charge against Trump, even on something as ridiculous as obstruction relating to documents from the National Archives, is the libs break the glass plan? It's the, oh, my God, we got to do anything we can to stop this guy. So let's just throw this at the wall and see if it sticks.
It wouldn't shock me. And what's fascinating about that in 2023, if they do it, because I don't think they'll do it before now the midterms. They've got the attention foisted onto Trump that they were hoping to get. I wonder how much someone else benefits, because I can see someone like DeSantis actually winning a landslide election as the Republican nominee, where they try to take out Trump, but they actually strengthen the overall Republican brand in the process, because many people are furious about what's going on with the attempt to take out Trump. And even moderates, if Trump's not on the ballot, would say, yes, Democrats are now the existential threats to democracy that they've been claiming that Republicans are, which we'll talk about a little bit when we come back, because I think that's a fascinating question to think as we move forward into 2023. Once we get through the midterms and start to think about the primary for 24.